Welcome back to my channel. This is An Alcoholic Explains, and this is going to be a bonus episode. Today I want to do a special episode on suicide awareness. 4th of October 2024, I lost a good and dear friend of mine to suicide, and it has rocked my world. So this episode is going to be in honor of them and basically just talking from the heart. So what is suicide? What is suicide ideation? Well, suicide is taking one's own life after probably a prolonged battle of depression and probably issues with substance abuse. I'm not saying that everyone that commits suicide is someone who has struggled with substance abuse. It could be a trigger. Something overwhelming has happened in one's life, and this person believes that the only way that they can get out of their problems is by unaliving themselves. Personally, I have been in that space very many times in my life. I started getting suicidal ideations from a really young age. I fell into depression when I was around 12 years old. And I would say, since I was a teenager, into my 20s and early 30s, I definitely toyed with the idea of suicide and in some cases attempted it. But I have survived. Which makes it even sadder that my friend did not. We used to talk about how bad our suicide ideation was. And he was someone who really understood what it meant when I said that I can't do this anymore. I can't hold on to hope anymore. I don't actually have hope anymore. He was one person who understood what I meant when I said that. There was a time we were locked up in a hospital together for about a week because we were both going through suicide ideations and a very deep depression. And he let me into his crazy and his world. And I let him into my depression and my world, and we bonded on a level that is just, not many people know that place. And if you do know how dark that place is, I'm sorry that you know that place, because that place, that dark abyss of hopelessness where suicide ideation takes you, depression, the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and you just cannot go on no matter what. You just cannot do it. You can't hold on to anything. Nothing gives you hope any longer. When you're in that place, it's a horrible place to be in. You're basically dead but walking. You're a dead man walking. And your life is basically in a countdown. And you know it. You know it. So over the past month, I've dealt with feelings of guilt, regret that I hadn't been there for my friend as much as I had wanted to be. over the past 4 years, things had become very difficult for him, and I did distance myself from him. I didn't think that it was good for my mental health or my sobriety to be in such close proximity with what he was going through. But at the same time, I wanted to help him. I really wanted to help. I just didn't know how to do it from being in close proximity to him. But I would pray for him, and I had hope in my heart that he would get better. In fact, I knew he would get better because he was a really good person. One of the most pure-hearted people I've ever met. One of the most loveliest people I've ever met. One of the most selfless people I've ever met. And I just knew that it was a matter of time before he made it through to the other side. And we would all laugh about how crazy this time was. And then I got the message, the news that he had passed away. And when I got the news, I knew immediately that it was a suicide. I just knew. I knew. He was in good health. It wasn't a sudden illness. He was healthy, he was fit, except for his mind. And we overlook how horrific and how detrimental mental illnesses play out. Mental illnesses, which are classified as depression, if you struggle with things like suicide ideation, I mean, these are things that would fall under the mental illness category. And because people can't see that your mind is broken, people think that you're okay. And you're not. You're not. You're really struggling. So on the outside, he looked like he was okay. He looked, he had this sunny disposition about him. However, people did tell me that towards the last few months of his life, there was a big shift, and there was no laughing. There was no smiling. There was no entertaining or funny jokes from him. He was somber, he was serious, and he just did not have that playful side of him anymore. He used to do this thing whenever I'd ask him, "How are you doing? What's up with you?" He always used to politely just shrug you off, politely throw you off his course so that you didn't ask questions about him anymore. And suddenly you were back talking about your life and what you're going through. He never wanted to let people in. He always kept you at a certain point. He let you into a certain point. And at that point, he made it very clear, very politely, very kindly, but very clear, you can't go any further from here. And it's so sad that in his last days, his last months, the last hours of his life, that he felt so alone and so isolated. He was surrounded by people, and surrounded by people who actually really loved him. But he couldn't feel that love. He couldn't feel that love. That love couldn't penetrate our mental illness. It couldn't penetrate that wall nothing could penetrate that wall except for God. And he did what he did, and he's not with us anymore. His death has impacted me in a way that I can't even begin to fathom. A month ago, this day a month ago, my friend was breathing his last. He was thinking his last. He was planning, he was plotting the ways he was going to do what he was going to do. And he had made a resolution. And he stuck to it. And I was told he was actually quite happy the last day of his life. He was talking with everyone. He was social. He was chirpy. And I believe he was all those things because he finally had a plan as to how he was going to kill himself. This is something common that happens with people who are going to commit suicide and have decided to commit suicide. They normally get very happy, very excited when they lock down on a plan, on a method, and on a resolution that they are going through with their plan to unalive themselves. To them, it's a relief. It's a relief to the unending tunnel, to the abyss of depression and darkness and floating in limbo. It's a finality. It's an answer. It's a destination. It's a decision that has been made, and it's going to be done. And this person believes that the decision of unaliving themselves, that temporary pain of losing their life, is much better than to live day in, day out, with this existential pain that is just, quote unquote, never going to get better. They've been told it's going to get better. People tell them all the time it's going to get better, but they don't believe it's going to get better. I just wish that my friend had waited one more day. I wish my friend had stopped living in the future, maybe tried to be in the present and seen that it's not so bad. But when you have a mental illness like depression or bipolar or schizophrenia or clinical depression, it's a different league. You're not working with a normal mind. You're not working with a mind that can just snap out of sadness and depression and can make rational decisions. You're working with a broken mind. A mind that will rationalize the irrational. A mind that will justify the unjust. A mind that will tell you that the world will be a better place if you are not here. It's so sad, the amount of pain that he's left behind. But I also understand what he did. I understand why he did what he did. I just wish that he would have given me some of his burdens. I wish he would have let me in more. I wish he would have let someone in more. I wish. a brilliant mind, a brilliant person, a stunning personality. Cut short by suicide ideation, by suicide, by depression, by so many different things, by this disease of addiction, by so many things. It's also left me scared about my sobriety. When I first met this person, they were sober and they helped me a lot in my recovery, especially the beginning days. They kind of took it upon themselves to hold my hand and be like a big brother to me. In fact, I feel like I've lost a big brother. And they helped me to avoid people, places, and things, and to work out the nitty-gritties of early recovery. And it used to be so nice to be able to just sit down and talk to someone that I really admired and looked up to about addiction and the truth about it, and to just play it out. I admired his recovery so much. He had done so much. He was doing so well. At the time that I met him, he had a couple of years of sobriety. And then something happened at 4 years sober and he relapsed. And for the last 4 years, he had been trying to get sober over and over and over and over again, but he could not get or stay sober. There was a time that he was my neighbor for about a month. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart to see him like that, day in and day out. What can you tell someone who knows the program inside out? What can you tell someone who knows the Bible inside out? Please surrender. What is it that happened? How did you relapse? You know you're not supposed to be drinking. You know you're not supposed to be drinking. Are you having fun? You know you're not having fun. What happened? Did you rest on your laurels? Come back to the program. Just come back. Surrender. Come back. But this thing called addiction and alcoholism, I can't work a program for you. Nobody can work a program for you if you're not willing to do the work to get sober and to stay sober. One, you can lose it. The second thing is, staying sober is a daily reprieve. It's not a guarantee that because I woke up sober today, I'm going to go to bed sober today. I don't will myself to be sober, even though I have 7 years, 3 months of sobriety. I don't say I'm going to be sober today and then I'm sober today. My friend didn't say he was going to be sober today and then he wasn't that evening, the day he relapsed. We have a disease of the mind, body, and soul that continuously convinces us and looks for ways to tell us in a very cunning, baffling, and powerful way when we are sober that we still need to go back, that we still need alcohol in our lives. And it's just waiting for that one day when I slip up, that one day when I have a bad day, that one day when I'm too frustrated or I'm too hungry or I'm too lonely or I'm too tired, that one day when alcohol is just in reach, that one day when I'm having a perfect day and I'm going and I'm sitting on the beach and I'm on vacation and I think, you know what, I've done all of this. Why can't I just drink a little wine? It's been 17 years of sobriety. Why can't I just drink a little wine? It's just waiting for the day that I rest on my laurels. It's just waiting for that one perfect day or that one bad day. And I ingest a sip of alcohol, and that's it. That's it. There's no coming back from that. I cannot control my actions after I ingest any sort of alcohol. All I can tell you is that I will want more and more and more, and more will never be enough, and I will have to be stopped. And my friend couldn't stop. And he got to that point where he couldn't stop, yet he couldn't die. Yet he couldn't stop and he couldn't get sober. And when he was sober briefly, he just wasn't happy. So his mind convinced him that the only way out was to unalive himself. I don't wish this on my worst enemy. By the grace of God, today I'm sober. And I really mean that. It's by the grace of God. If it's not for God, I would not be sober. And that means I'd be working towards my death. So this episode and this podcast is just in memory of my friend who on the 24th of October passed away, and who I will forever miss.